Paranormal. It surrounds us. It's everywhere. Tonight, you will hear from the people who live and work within these highly active locations. All in the efforts to discover America's most haunted. Most haunted. With your host, ghost hunter and author, Dan Terry.
Good evening, boys and ghouls. I am Dan, your ghost host with the most haunted, and got a new one for you here. It's a little bit different, but you guys been around long enough to know. I'm sure most of you have been watching this long enough to understand that I have about as much faith in the government telling us the truth as I have the rattlesnake I put in my shirt pocket and slap it, not biting. It's just, I don't trust anything. When I was a cop, the first thing we learned is you believe half of what you hear and only about 2/3 of what you see. So I'm just not big, even on history. I mean, we know there are heroes and villains in history, and history's something I love to read. I still love to read. But the thing is how much of it gets pushed off to the side. Y'all remember I've done a couple stories on giants and cultures that have been hidden because it doesn't quite fit the narrative. Giants, for one thing. I'm really big into the giant skeletons. One was discovered not far from the area where I was born and raised. And there's pictures of it. It was in a doctor's office for weeks. It got sent to the Smithsonian Institute at their request, and suddenly they said, we don't know what you're talking about, and they got the proof. Here's the letter. You asked for it, but, well, we never got that, and we don't know who sent it. And that happened to a lot of this stuff. If it didn't fit the narrative, it got pushed out. Y'all maybe know, right now I'm kind of looking into the idea that an ancient culture from overseas has temples and things, or something else, in the Grand Canyon, because so much of it has been blocked off. People can't go in there. Black helicopters come in when you try. A lot of stuff that I just have a very little faith in when it comes to the government, and that's the Smithsonian's part of the government, whether they want to admit it or not. Well, I, going through the internet, found a site, YouTube podcast, and it's called Hushed Up History with Sarah Blake. And that's what she talks about. Not so much the giants and such, but just things in history that, I don't know, some of it was just inconvenient or something they didn't want to make a big deal of, and it just kind of got shoved off to the side. And thank God there's people like her who brings it back. So let me introduce you to Sarah Blake of Hushed Up History.
Hello, how are you?
Sarah, I've been watching your stuff. I'm really into that kind of thing. What is your opinion? Is some of this stuff being purposely misshelved, misfiled?
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you so much for reading Hushed, for watching Hushed. I really appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you. Are things being conveniently kind of shoved to the side? In my opinion, absolutely. Absolutely. Since, the beginning of recorded time, we have questions about things. What happened to this? Where did this go? Where did this person go? And, especially now, we have such an ability to research and find information and answer some of these questions, but we just somehow can't piece some of these things together. I don't know. Strange.
Yeah, certain facts just disappeared. That was the key to the whole thing.
Mm-hmm,
just
absolutely.
Like the giant skeletons that suddenly disappeared once they got to the Smithsonian Institute.
Yep.
And don't get me started on the government. I think that's, as much as I do, there's some things I love about it and other things I just don't grasp. Yeah. The Smithsonian is one of them. We talked a little bit beforehand. There was one you called The Tragedy of Jack Fiddler that goes right into my wheelhouse of paranormal activity. What can you tell us about Jack Fiddler and his adventure?
So Jack Fiddler, one of my absolute favorite cryptids, creatures, monsters, whatever term you want to use, are Wendigos. I love them. I'm fascinated by them. So when I heard the story of Jack Fiddler, I was all in. Jack Fiddler, way, way, way long ago, he was a member of an indigenous tribe in Canada, and his job was to be the killer of Wendigos that threatened
Really?
his tribe. Yeah. And he had his father did it before him. He did it. His brother did it. It was, it was a family business, killing Wendigos. And and there is a lot of documentation that was written about him on these encounters and these Wendigos that he was able to destroy. And everything was going fine up in Canada with his family and everyone around him. But then word started getting out to the Canadian forces, and they didn't like hearing what they were hearing. They didn't like this idea that this man that they named Jack Fiddler was killing people and Wendigos, because there was a point in his process of rooting out Wendigos where if they got enough of a hold on somebody, they couldn't be saved. And this was an accepted part of their community, but there were other people that didn't like hearing that. So they went in. He and his brother were arrested, and he had his own tragic tale at the end.
Sarah, just so people understand, I know most of us do, most of the people who watch this show, we've talked about things like this, but what's a Wendigo?
Oh, a Wendigo. So a Wendigo is a creature that has been known to inhabit a lot of different wooded areas. In Jack Fiddler's case, we're talking specifically about Canada, but you'll hear other stories from all over. They
New Mexico,
are these,
Arizona.
yeah, and they are these beings. They are skeletal. They have their skin stretched over bone. Sometimes they're depicted as having antlers, and they devour people and their life force. This is what they do. This is what they feed on. And they were, a menace to some of these indigenous tribes and early people, because they were seen as a legitimate threat, as coming in and being able to wipe out the population, which is why we had people like Jack Fiddler who took it upon himself to get rid of them.
Early version of Kolchak, the Night Stalker.
Yeah, there you go.
So if I remember correctly, at least in the Southwest United States, these were shaman and medicine men who went bad. Is that the way
Yes.
you understood it? These are not.
That
like
is the way I
Bigfoot.
understood it. Yeah, no. That's what my understanding was of that region. I'm not 100% sure if that's still kind of the origin tale up in regions like Canada and other areas of the world, but my understanding from the Southwest is correct, what you had just said.
So his job was to hunt them down and basically kill them. Did he have a way of experimenting to figure out if they were really Wendigos or?
There were a lot of different accounts that he wrote, but some of them they were either very, very detailed about how he attacked them and stabbed them and got into like very physical altercations with these Wendigos. There were also accounts written by his family members and then from him that literally simply described it as he went into the woods. We heard a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of screaming, and then he came back out. And everything was great.
So I could see Canada's point in, all right, this guy's got a really attractive wife. I think he's a Wendigo, so I'm going to kill him.
Right? You gotta wonder.
Okay, so what happened to him eventually? Was he hung for this? Was he?
Well, he was arrested because in the eyes of these other people, he was a murderer. He wasn't a Wendigo killer. He wasn't someone who was serving the community. He was just a cold-blooded killer. So he was arrested, he, his brother, and 2 or 3 other accomplices. And while they were imprisoned, there was one morning they all went out with a guard to gather things to start making breakfast for all of the prisoners. And he saw an opportunity and he took it and he left. He walked away. And at this point, Jack Fiddler was older. He was in his 70s or early 80s, and he took off. And it wasn't noticed at first that he took off. When it was noticed, that was bad, and there was a little bit of a panic. So everybody went after to look for Jack Fiddler, and they did find him, but he took his own life in the woods. He hung himself from a tree. So
Okay.
it's horribly tragic what happened to Jack Fiddler. At the same time, I've told this story to some other people, and they have looked at it like, but he got away and he went on his own terms. So I guess it's just how you want to look at it.
Mhm.
But yeah, so you have this man that was such a revered member and a valuable member of his community doing this very important service, but you see this cultural shift on how that wasn't seen that way from other people, and he was imprisoned for it, and he ended up deciding, this is it for me, this is how I'm going to leave this earth.
That's cool. I mean, and I can see his point too. Yeah, I'm going to die anyway. They're going to catch me eventually, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to give it to them. I'm not going to let them win.
Yeah.
But is there such a thing as a Wendigo? What do you believe?
You know, I think it would be foolish for us silly humans to definitively be like, that doesn't exist. Because every day we're learning that what we think is real and not real is a lot foggier than we want to believe. So I can never sit and be like, no, there's no such thing as that, because I don't think we know. I think we think we know. I think we think we know a lot more than we do. But I mean, we're learning every day that there are things that didn't exist or were impossible that, oh, here it is.
Well, let's talk about something else impossible. Come back into this country. And we chatted a little bit about this earlier, and that was in 1953. The Kinross Air Force Base, something was on the radar screen, some kind of, I don't know, UFO. It was unidentified flying object. And a Lieutenant Moncla went up to check on it. What happened to the lieutenant?
And we don't really know. We know that there were sightings on a radar of, like you had said, an unidentified object. And it was going into some airspace where it shouldn't have been. So we should probably go check on this. So he went up, and as the people were watching on the radar, they had him clearly. They had the unidentified object clearly. But then at one point, they merged, and only one came out the other end. And when it did, it moved along, and then it disappeared.
Okay.
And everybody, they couldn't explain this. They were hoping, obviously, that it was Moncla, but he was never found. They never found him. They never found any trace of the plane, and they could never explain that when these 2 points met, the one that made it out just vanished on their radar screen.
This made some newspapers, at least locally. Yes. And okay, so we've got in the 50s, when we have radar and all kinds of neat gadgets and fighter planes capable of traveling Mach 1 at least, and one disappears over the United States, why wasn't this a much bigger deal?
Well, that brings into how closely the United States government, or just people in general, really want to get into these things that can't be explained. It could be something as elaborate as they know what happened, but they don't want to say what happened. Or it could go on the other end of things and just be like, they literally don't know, but they don't want to say they don't know. Because that's almost as opening themselves up to as much criticism as saying something that other people would think was just unbelievable. So I think it kind of just fell into this comfortable little pocket of, because there were a couple of different explanations given. I believe, one explanation was given to his widow, and then, they came out with an official statement at one point that was something completely different. So that, to me, would point to they cannot figure out what happened, but they also don't want to say they can't figure out what happened.
There was another case in Australia where a fighter pilot went after one and disappeared. No, he crashed, but they said they couldn't figure out why he crashed. There was no explanation for it. So is this all governments doing this?
there's definitely, common factors here. There's definitely, you can't deny that there's common things going on here. You have, and like you had pointed out, this wasn't like, in the
1914.
1700s. Yeah, exactly. Like, there are these highly sophisticated machines that are specifically built and constructed to do these very specific, very intense jobs. So when they just disappear and multiple countries, multiple continents over decades and decades and decades,
Yes.
how could we not think that there's some overreaching umbrella or there's some common factor here to causing these disappearances?
There was a few years ago, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, or if you know, I don't. There was a flight of an airline full of people that just disappeared like that. Some said it crashed in the ocean. There was no debris. There was no anything. No way of finding out where those people went. We had the IFFs on all planes now, identify friend or foe. They should be able to track where that is. They've got other kinds of homing devices.
Right.
This plane just suddenly disappeared.
Yeah.
And
so I mean, that brings up another question. Is it's like this isn't like an archaic thing that's happening. This is still happening.
It is.
And we still have as many questions now as we did then. Even with all of the advancements we've seen, we still can't answer it.
Mm-hmm. So Michigan had that, and I think there's even a marker that says it was in your article that this is where the pilot disappeared, and he was chasing a flying saucer or UFO or something.
Yeah, it literally says on the marker, which I thought was interesting too. Like, you don't want to answer any of these questions. Everything's kind of unknown, very, very secret. But there's a plaque that flat out says, disappeared chasing a UFO. So what do we do with that?
We talked earlier about West Virginia. I believe it was in West Virginia. There was a ghost that actually solved her own murder. Are you familiar with that case?
Yes. Yes, okay. I am.
I can't remember her name, but her mother had dreams every night of her saying she was murdered, and she convinced them to...
I could be wrong. Is this the Greenbrier?
Yes, Greenbrier.
Okay. I couldn't remember if Greenbrier was West Virginia or if there was another one.
Yeah, I think that's the same one. But have you done an article on that one yet?
I did an article on Greenbrier Ghost way back when I first started Hush. I started Hushed Up History in 2014.
Okay.
So, but she was one of the first ones I did, yeah.
And
that's one of the things I love are these, you hear these stories about like, you talk about this whole meeting of like more like formal, rational meeting, these paranormal things like with these disappearances. They obviously disappeared, but we have all these questions. I love these stories of the paranormal coming into the courtroom. There's Greenbrier. In my book, I have a story about a ghost or the spirit of a man's father who told him where the actual will was that would have given the rest of his family an inheritance, and that was brought to court.
Really?
Yeah. The James Chafin story.
Well, tell us a little bit about it.
So the Chafin family, it was in North Carolina, I believe. James Chafin, the father, he passed away very suddenly, and I believe there were 4 or 5 sons. I could be wrong on that, but there were a number of children, and the will that was read gave everything to one son in particular. But surprisingly, nobody fought it. They were just like, oh, okay, he gets it all, no big deal. But another son, whose nickname was Pink, had a dream where the father was kind of standing over him, and it kept repeating. And then at one point, the spirit of his father that was appearing to him in these dreams told him that he had to find a copy of a will in his grandfather's old Bible. And he pulled open his overcoat in the dream, and there was a document in a pocket. And Pink took this as, well, this is something. This isn't just random. Something's happening here. And he actually he knew where the Bible was. He knew where the overcoat was. He knew where all these pieces were. And he followed up on it. He went to, I believe it was his mother's house with a brother, found the overcoat, and there was a document in the pocket, but it wasn't the will. It was a note that told him to go to find the old Bible. So now we have
Okay.
to go find the old Bible. And he knew it was weird because he made sure to bring somebody with him to verify what was going on. He brought a neighbor, found the
Okay.
Bible, found a revised version of this will that was written after the one that gave everything to the one brother.
Hmm.
And there were notes in there saying, I revised this will. I realized I had allocated everything in an unfair way. And they brought this to court, and they were, yeah, this is legit. This is the legitimate will. So everybody
Wow.
now gets something. Yeah.
So, that is pretty cool. I
I
love
love
that
it.
kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you have any others like that? I know I got two. There was a case here recently where they, I think, educated through the judge that this house was haunted. And that became the basis of the law. I believe it's in New Jersey that you have to disclose if your house is haunted.
That's
Hadn't heard that one,
fantastic.
huh?
I haven't heard that, but now I'm going to look it up because
Yeah,
that's fascinating. I love
there's
it.
only like two states, but there's two or three states. I think New Jersey was the first that
Oh, well, that would make
requires.
sense. Jersey's one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
There's a lot of weird here.
Let's start just real briefly. And I saw this, it was on yours, but I've seen it before. I've totally forgotten about it. I believe it was in Virginia, and it was a vampire and a cave in.
Yes.
The train. Yeah, let's talk that one real brief.
So I'm trying to remember it. There is, and it was one of these things again where that was one of these stories where you see these things kind of get tangled together that
Oh,
are
yeah.
actually completely separate, but just because of timing or people's opinions or lore, you see these very separate things getting very, very tangled with one another.
Sure.
And there it was a train tunnel that had caved in. And unfortunately, a lot of people lost their lives in this cave in. But
Mhm.
nearby, there was a cemetery that had a crypt, and there were people that swore that they saw somebody from the tunnel flee and go into this crypt. And it started this whole story about how there's a vampire now and the vampire that lives in this crypt. So it's just one of those things where, you have this, let's put it together,
Okay.
and now you have this whole legend going
Well,
on.
and I actually have been there to where the train tunnel's blocked up, but the train is still in there
Yeah,
with
the
the
train is still
people
in.
who was
It's a
killed.
crypt essentially.
Yeah,
You have the people saying, "Oh, somebody ran into a crypt." It's like, well, that's a crypt
they
too,
ran
really.
from that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So much. You're a historian too. What got you onto this side of history?
Oh, excuse me. I mean, I've always loved the strange stuff. I've always loved history, but I also always loved the weird stuff. I was always, when I was a kid, I was always watching, unsolved mysteries, sightings, anything like that. I loved it. I absolutely devoured it. But when you look into these things, even in terms of like ghost stories and paranormal investigations, they're looking for the answers as to why. Well, that's the history of it. So
Mhm.
it's always been my opinion that history and the paranormal should be really good friends and work together because they are so intricately linked. So it was just a kind of, it just kind of happened really, where it's these two things that I absolutely loved that were so closely connected, and it was really something to dive into that I didn't see a lot of these very stranger kind of stories being told. And I think that's because, we always have this, well, not always, but it's been a thing. It starts in school a lot where history is taught as just here's this name, here's this date,
Sure.
and they don't really get into the strange and fascinating stuff. And there's so much of it. So that's where I decided, you know what, let's turn this into a thing. I'm gonna write this blog, and said it's 11 years later, and I haven't even scratched the surface of
Oh,
stories that I
yeah.
have to tell.
And you have actually taken most of these, I shouldn't say most, many of these stories and produced a book.
I did.
Oops, sorry, there it is. Hushed Up
There it
History.
is.
All right.
Hushed up history.
what kind of stories do you have in there?
So
Same
one of
thing,
the
I'm
things
sure.
that yeah, so one of the things that I put a lot of effort into the blog and now with the book and the same with the YouTube series. What I do with everything really is I try to emphasize like these crazy stories, they're everywhere. They're
Hmm.
all over the world. They're from all time frames. So that's something that I put a lot of effort into is making sure that it's a wide variety of different kinds of stories, different places, different time periods. So for Hushed Up History Volume 1, it's 34 stories, and there's a little bit of everything. There's ghost stories, there's tragedies, there's some feel good stories in there too. You got to mix it up a little bit, but you have true crime, said paranormal, human tragedies, stories of these incredible human accomplishments that defied all odds. There's a couple of animal stories. It's all over the map, and
Hmm.
I try to do that in the best way possible because there's so much. It's all over the place.
Well, I have been enjoying the podcast, so I can't wait to check out the book. It looks great.
Thank you.
Sarah, I'll be right back with you. We're going to stop for a commercial break, and then we're going to talk some more. Specifically, there's a couple of triangles I want to talk about here in the U.S.
Pesky triangles.
That's it. I'll be right back. Like I said, guys, there is so much stuff. She's right. There's so much stuff going on in the world, and so little of it gets put out. Uh, and sometimes it gets, how do I want to say this, mocked by the government. Y'all remember, and I'm sure some of you have seen it, reefer madness. And even I, who never touched drugs, I don't believe in them. I don't agree with it. My mind is the only good thing I've got, so I try to keep it in decent shape. But even I knew you don't grow hair and become a werewolf when you smoke joint. It's ridiculous. But that's the kind of stuff they were pushing in the day. It's now they're trying to push this other stuff. And I wonder what they're trying to direct us away from when they bring up the Tic Tacs, the Navy fighters, the videos, and the radar hits of the Tic Tac shaped UFOs that disappear. Fighters can't keep up with it. What are they trying to keep us from watching? I always believe in that too. We get our attention diverted probably too easily. But before your attention gets diverted again, I want you guys to watch this, and I'll be right back.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com. The Unex Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes, made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the Unex Network website at unexnetwork.com. That's unexnetwork.com.
Let me remind you all that we've changed the name to the Unexplained Network. Some folks just couldn't get the Unex part, so it's Unexplained Network. And we got a lot of good shows on here. We have UFOs and all of that. We'll talk more about that at the end of the show, as we always do. Just feel free to jump on the comments and criticize me when I say Unex Network. I've been saying that for like 4 years now. And I gotta remember it's the Unexplained Network. But what I can't explain is why we're going back to Sarah, because I'm just loving these kind of conversations. The Bennington Triangle is that the one in
Bennington
Vermont?
Triangle. Yeah. Bennington Triangle. So, excuse me. Sorry about that.
Oh,
Bennington doesn't want me to talk about it. So,
that's what I'd have blamed.
Right? So the Bennington Triangle. There's a lot of, we all know the Bermuda Triangle. We've all heard the Bermuda Triangle. It always seems like at least when I was a kid, it seemed like the Bermuda Triangle was like always in conversation. It was always this thing being talked about, the Bermuda Triangle. But it's not the only triangle where stuff disappears. You can't trust them. It's triangles. But Bennington, Vermont is the Bennington Triangle. It's this expanse of just, it's beautiful, this beautiful wilderness, but it's laced with a whole lot of tragedy. There's been many, many cases of people just disappearing in this stretch of woods. So we have the Bermuda Triangle where people are disappearing over the water, but now we've learned that the woods are also as dangerous with making people just disappear without a trace in Vermont.
And there was one where the guy not only disappeared in the triangle, but right off a crowded bus.
Yeah. Just gone. Just, there are other instances where, people easily can, if they really want to, they easily can be like, oh, it's the wilderness. It's, people get lost, people get disoriented, they went into the water. And you could counter that by like, well, one of these people who disappeared was extremely familiar with this wooded area, or they were very experienced hikers. But how do you explain the guy who just off a bus? It's a little harder to it's a little harder to talk that one away.
Perfectly happy guy, went to visit his family, was on his way back to the military home for aged veterans, gets on the bus, is seen, never gets off. Yeah.
Just gone.
I believe his luggage was there, but his coat and everything was gone.
Just gone. I mean, where do you go? You're on a bus.
Yeah.
you can't just go out the window. You can't. And it's not like the bus was empty. Like, people saw this man. They confirmed that he was sitting toward the back of a bus, and he's just vanished.
Any other things from that particular triangle?
Oh, there's a story, like I mentioned kind of just before. There was a woman who just went out. She wasn't far from her home and where she was familiar, very experienced with the area, very familiar with the area, and again, just gone. And it's one of these, she probably got lost. If you know the area really well and you have the kind of experience that she had, it's not super likely that just all of a sudden she would have gotten lost in these areas that you know so well. It's like getting lost in your backyard. There were other instances, I believe, where a woman was seen walking up one of the roads, and again, just gone. She disappeared. No one ever heard from her again. And it's so interesting to hear about these places that just seem to have all of these stories attached, where again, kind of like we had just talked about how this overreaching umbrella with all these little common stories underneath, these triangles that people just vanish in with no hint as to what may have happened to them.
When we discussed this, you mentioned a second triangle you wanted to talk about.
The Michigan Triangle. We're back to Michigan.
Michigan, okay. Just out of curiosity, was Lieutenant Moncla in that triangle when he disappeared?
I didn't look that up, actually. I didn't put that together. I'm going to have to now, see if he's another Michigan Triangle person.
But
yeah, the Michigan Triangle. But the Michigan Triangle, we have the people who disappeared in the air, but we also have people that disappeared on a ship. And similar to the man in the Bennington Triangle being on the bus, this was a captain of, I believe, he was a captain who had just spent like a long night navigating the icy waters of the Great Lakes. And he had just successfully got through this very, very treacherous stretch of travel, just about to, be home, told the crew, I'm going to the cabin, I'm going to get some sleep. They saw him go into the cabin, shut the door. He had said, wake me up at this point in the trip. They went to go wake him up, knock on the door, no response, knock again, no response. They open the door, and he's gone. Just gone. And similar to the man on the bus, where do you go?
Yeah.
Like, there's nowhere else to go in this ship. And everybody had seen him walk in. They don't know what happened to him. He disappeared on his 58th birthday.
And no reason to believe he was suicidal and would have jumped off the side.
No, there was one thing that specifically pointed out that there's no way he would have fit through any of the portholes or any other.
Yeah.
There was only one door in or out, but he was never found.
Okay. Was that a darn it, freight hauler? That wasn't a big passenger ship, was it?
No. It definitely wasn't like a passenger cruise liner or anything like that. No,
Probably
but
just a freight hauler then. Okay. And
just
I've heard there's
gone.
other things there in the Great Lakes area of the.
I mean, the Great Lakes are their own whole thing, talking about paranormal and strange instances. I mean, the number of accounts of ships disappearing, of planes disappearing, of UFOs. I mean, the Great Lakes, you want to talk about a wealth of strange? Great Lakes, Michigan.
What, do you have an example of things that's happened there?
I mean, besides the ship, there's multiple instances of ships disappearing on the Great Lakes, and one of the earliest ones was in the 1800s, and it was just another one of these things where everybody saw the ship, they left, they were going, and gone, just gone like that. One of the stranger things about it, though, was that when it was found, or when it was believed to be found. They couldn't confirm 100%, but they're pretty sure because this particular ship had very unique traits about it. There was a dive team that found a ship at the bottom of one of the lakes, and they're pretty sure this is the ship, but it disappeared in such a way so that it came to rest at the bottom of the lake, just sitting perfectly upright. Like it was untouched. The dishes were on shelves. Things were perfectly laid out. It's literally as if it was just here and then just went and just came to rest right at the bottom.
Strange. Ships generally don't perch.
No. And it's, it's another one kind of like, oh, well, they got lost in the woods. Well, oh, this one hit bad weather. Well, did it? Because if it hit bad weather, there would be some sort of indication to
I would think
something.
So.
But this just looks like it just perfectly came to rest right at the bottom of the lake. No crew members on the ship, but the boat's just resting there.
That's wild. And I've seen those guys go down underwater and be near those. That would just scare the hell out of me. I don't
think I could do that.
Freak me out. Yeah. We've talked about triangles and all of that stuff, but have you done any research on the 911, the missing people in state and federal parks? That's really popular right now. I
was just talking about this with somebody the other day. It's something I really, really want to dig into more. I just saw somebody who told me about a book that had just come out about like mysteries of the national parks, and I mean that's another one of those. Well, there's so much of this happening.
Yes.
But now it's not just, oh, well, there's all these things happening in this triangle or this triangle. Just in general, just national parks. We have this thing where people are just vanishing. And I'm sure some of them can be explained. I'm sure.
Of course.
But there's always some. There's always some that it's a little harder to believe that it was something as simple as going off a trail or, something of that nature. But yeah, that's something I really want to dig into more. I'm fascinated by that.
One of the stories that I had read on, little boy with special needs disappeared. They searched for him for days, found him 2 mountain ranges away, And he couldn't tell him how he got there or anything, but he was fine. It was like he'd been fed. He was not in starvation mode or anything.
Really? 2 mountain ranges away. And how long was it until they found him, you said?
Like a week or something, yeah.
Wow.
And he said that it would have taken a really experienced hiker longer than that to get that far away.
Wow.
You read about the stories with folks walking down a trail and they turn their head to look at something, and when they turn back, the kid in the middle is gone.
Yeah.
They're drawing parallels that if you wear bright colors, you could disappear. That everyone who disappears is wearing bright colors. If you're carrying a weapon, you don't get disappeared.
See, I love it. There's all these. I love it. I really want to dig into that a little more, because I had never heard that part of it, like the bright color thing.
Yeah. I just read that recently, and the idea that if you have like a transponder or a gun with you, only one person carrying a gun has disappeared. Anyone else carrying one, it's like he's untouchable.
Sounds like Wendigos.
Could be. Yeah. I'm leaning towards government, but yeah, whatever.
Government Wendigos.
Good one. In the last few minutes we've got, what's your favorite mystery to discuss?
Oh, God.
Yeah, I don't put you on the spot that way.
Oh, my favorite mystery to discuss. There's so many. Well, there's one. We're talking about like the whole kind of cover-up type of deal, mystery, true crime kind of realm of things. One of my absolute favorite stories, and I say that me learning about this story is the reason Hushed Up History exists, is the wreck of the Morro Castle in Asbury Park.
Okay,
Are you
go
familiar
ahead.
with the Morro Castle?
Not catching this one, no. I was expecting Mary Celeste, so go ahead.
No, I mean, so the Morro Castle was one of a passenger cruise liner, like unlike the one the captain in Michigan. This was a passenger cruise ship, and it was a full of people. They were returning from Cuba to return back to New York, and it's like everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong to this ship. The captain was found mysteriously dead the last night. There was a hurricane that was following them, and then a fire started, and the fire destroyed this cruise ship. It was a disastrous inferno that happened on this ship, and as they were making their way back while they're on fire, multiple rescue ships came to them and attached a tow line. As they're trying to move away, the tow line snaps. They hit into another hurricane. Everything that could have happened to this ship happened. But when the big question of how did this fire start, later on, it started to piece together that in my opinion at least, it was a crew member that started this. There was a crew member that never was thought to be responsible for the fire of the Morro Castle until much later in life. He was one of the radio operators. And throughout the ordeal, he was I'm a hero. Look what I did. But there were actions later on that people saw that he had taken while the ship was on fire that were a little suspect. He refused to send out an SOS until the acting captain specifically said, well, nobody could get to the acting captain because he was out trying to navigate this disaster going on, but he refused to send it. There were weird comments that he had made to crew members about, when things happen, don't worry, blah, 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 blah. It was later found out that he had a long history of fires being started in his presence or places that he worked, and that he had a fascination with different explosions that had happened throughout history. So all of these little things started to be pieced together, and it wasn't until way after the fact that people started to go, he was involved. He was absolutely involved. But we talked about, the whole cover up when it was being investigated. Besides this man being part of the crew who had a very bad history of setting fires and things of that nature, there was a lot of things wrong with the ship itself, where if certain protocols had been followed, or if certain things had been done differently, it wouldn't have gone up as quickly. There wouldn't have been such a huge loss of life. And that was not really discussed when it was being investigated. At one point they were like, oh, it was an act of God, it was struck by lightning. No. There was a fire. It was deliberately set by someone on that ship. And as far as I'm concerned, the evidence points to this radio operator. But in the last, as I said, so many things happened to this ship. It's to the point where if you had pitched this as a story, someone would be like, that's too unbelievable, that's too crazy. Like, no. In the last, this ship's last act, as it was being towed, I had mentioned the tow line snapped. So you have this cruise ship that is engulfed in flame, now just aimlessly floating through the ocean during a hurricane, and it beached itself in Asbury Park, New Jersey.
Okay.
Crashed into the beach, this huge burning wreckage, and it stayed there for months. After the fire went out, it almost became a tourist attraction. The next day, people were filling, and you can look up photos of the Morro Castle the day after it crashed into the beach at Asbury Park. The beach is full of people waiting in line to go up and touch the ship or take a piece of the ship. It turned into this almost phenomena. But the story of this ship, because I love maritime disasters. I know that sounds horrible, but I love maritime disasters. So between the maritime disasters, my opinion of this deranged crew member that caused this huge disaster, all of these things that happened to it that just seem so unbelievable, it was a perfect storm of just chaos for this ship. And then you have these images of a charred wreck of a cruise ship just on the beach at Asbury Park that people were just visiting. It's a maritime disaster. It's a mystery story. I love the story of the Morro Castle. I tell everybody, you got to read about the Morro Castle.
That is intriguing. And it reminds me when the Titanic had their big trial.
Yeah.
And it was the original story was it went down in one piece.
Yeah.
And when the poorer folks, the third class types who survived, said, no, we saw it. We were the last off. It broke in half and then came back down again, and then it went down. Well, basically the court said they're peasants. They don't know what they're talking about. The rich people said it went down altogether, so that's what it went into the original files.
Yeah. These people are higher and mightier, so their account is what matters.
They're more trustworthy than the poor.
Yeah.
So that's
and again, we see that over and over and over again. But,
and did they think that it was going to make a difference whether it went down in one piece or two? 1,400 people are dead. What difference does it make if they all travel together on the same piece? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
That was I had not heard of that one, and I'm going to have to look that up because
you got to look it up.
I used to be in the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard exists because of the Titanic.
Yes.
So I'm really into, like you, maritime disasters. I learned a lot about that when I was in. And I hadn't heard of that one yet.
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, like I said, me learning about the Morro Castle, I'm not far from Asbury Park. I'm very familiar with Asbury Park, and I had never heard of this. So when I did hear about it, 14 years or 11 years ago, it was definitely, like I said, Hush of History exists because I learned about the Morro Castle. Because I was like, it is absolutely insane to me that this huge event happened and you don't hear about it. So that was really a driving force of okay, there's stories to be told, and they deserve to be told, and they need a place to live. So I'm going to give them that place to live.
Oh, that was an interesting story. That was cool.
If you look it up, just
Yeah.
the images are so, it's a, if you look at the bottom half of the image, it's like, oh, it's a happy beach scene in Asbury Park. Everybody on the beach, everybody's having a good time, and then you pull the image up, and it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah, the top
something
is
happened
burned
there.
off. Yeah.
Yeah.
What have you got coming up next for Hushed Up Histories?
Oh, so many. I mean, I'm constantly finding new stories, and I'm
Okay.
constantly writing them and putting them together. Right now, the latest kind of version of Hushed Up History, the newest one, is every Thursday on the Signal Network on YouTube. I'm presenting multiple stories of the strange, the spooky, the unusual, the creepy. So I'm having a blast doing that because, like we had talked about, I love that stuff. I love seeing the paranormal and the scary meeting the history. So every Thursday, I'm telling the crazy, spooky stories. I'm regularly posting all kinds of stuff at husheduphistory.com. I'm regularly posting stories on TikTok, and I'm gathering stuff together for Volume 2 of Hushed Up
Volume
History.
2, and that would be, let me find that cover again, Hushed Up History by Sarah Blake. And where can that be picked up at?
Hushed Up History can be found Amazon, Barnes & Noble, pretty much any online bookseller. You can find Hushed Up History.
Is it hit Barnes & Noble in the stores, do you know?
Not yet. Not that I'm aware of.
And when I write, I always put the books out in ebook format. A lot of people like the convenience. Is it available as an ebook?
Absolutely.
All right. Sarah, this has been one of the funnest hours I've had in a long time.
Oh.
Hearing the stories and all that.
Thank you. This was a blast.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. Would you stand by for a minute? I want to talk to you some more after the show, okay?
Absolutely.
Be right back. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks.
Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. Just thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. This was a really good time. I appreciate it.
I enjoyed hearing your stories. Absolutely. Talk to you in a minute. Okay, my friends, that is the final of this episode. And check out the book. Check her out on YouTube and on Instagram and Facebook. That's how I discovered her site. And it's almost like binge watching. You get one and it's like, that was really cool. And you look for another topic you like and you hear that one. And then, well, here's one that's a little different, but let's check it out. I was addicted to it as soon as I started. And that's when I'm thinking I got to try and get her on the show and get her to talk about some of these mysteries, because it was a lot of fun. Hey, guys, I do want to mention the Unexplained Network. Hey, I did it right that time. The Unexplained Network, go to unexnetwork.com. Drop down a little bit. You can join up. And what do you get when you join the Unex Network? Damn it. The Unexplained Network. Well, first off, you get access to the blog. And guys, the blog goes crazy several times a month, because there's always, like Sarah said, there's always something coming out. The Tic Tacs, we were right on top of that from day one, because it came out while we had the blog going, which has been now for 4 years. And we just talked about, hey, the Navy is now saying these videos are real, that there was these craft our fighters could not touch, could not get close to. Did you all see that video just a couple of weeks ago? Look it up. It's on YouTube, where one of our missiles hit an unidentified object and just ricocheted off of it like a bullet into steel, or like a bullet on Superman. It just flies off into a different direction. Things like that are intriguing, and we were on top of that. So check out the blog. You get that for free once you become a member. After the blog is the newsletter, and that comes out almost daily, but it talks about what's on the shows. And if I could just briefly mention, we have got so many shows. We've got new shows coming. My friend Michelle Roos over in Iowa with Riverside Paranormal has a show where she discusses the paranormal, the supernatural. And then there's one called oh gosh, Get Haunted. And those guys really know what they're doing too. They're into the paranormal. They show some really intriguing stuff also. And there's Bigfoot. There is cryptids, which of course is Wendigos, as me and Sarah talked about. Gosh, everything, whatever you were interested in, demonics, it gets mentioned in all of this. Mothman falls under the cryptid thing. And recently our blog discussed sightings of winged humanoid creatures being seen all over the country, all over the world. Strange, but we're on top of that. And then every couple of months, you get, I think it's every 2 months it comes out, you get the Unexplained magazine. And this is a couple of them from a couple of years ago. I wrote a couple articles on the dark one, the one on the left, mostly the Haunted Battleship North Carolina, but I also wrote one on, how do I say it? Traditions of Halloween, legends of Halloween. And when I say legends of Halloween, I'm talking about when I was a kid, every Halloween, they'd say there was a cult that was going to kidnap blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls between the ages of 12 and 15 and sacrifice them. That was big news, which, of course, wasn't real. That there was going to be razor blades in the apples, drugs in the fruit or in the candy or whatever. And all of those legends had a small kernel of truth in them, blown way out of proportion. I even remember once the intercom, they came out with this was a small town. The police had issued a thing about, no, there's no cults. We have no reason to believe there's cults going to kidnap the kids. Just stay close to your parents. Good idea, right? So there's that. And I wrote an article on that one. This article has several great stories. I did one on haunted dolls, and you guys been around know how dolls creep me out. God, I hate those things. And The Last Call at the Devil's Diner, that was one I wrote about the Tri-County Truck Stop in Missouri, very famous place on Route 66. It was 70 years old when it went down. I mean, I ghost hunted it for a good probably 10 years. And the building was going down slowly. It had been closed off. Asbestos was a problem. They couldn't do anything with it. And then in March of this year, March of 2025, got hit by a tornado and totally destroyed. But the ghosts in there were incredible. We had so many adventures. And I wrote one last article about it. So the magazine is interesting. It's got lots of better writers than me in it. You need to join up with the Unix Network. Check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. And honestly, that's about all I've got to say. So again, thanks, Sarah, for being on. That was absolutely intriguing. It's wintertime. Y'all stay cool. It won't be difficult. Stay warm. And above all, guys, just get out there and stay spooked, okay? Good night.